Do you see what I'm getting at? When they can't argue with the message, they will try to attack and try to destroy the messenger. This has happened across history. It happened in the Old Testament, happened in the New Testament. When people don't like what you believe, they would like to do everything to discredit you. Because if they can discredit you, they discredit your message. That's the goal. And the danger and the sad thing is that's what really happens. If I get discredited as a person, my message gets discredited too. And what God is calling upon you and me is to so live so that the messenger will never take the bribe, and be faithful and honest, so that the point of reference, the point of relevance, and the point of disturbance may stay true. You know, I had a very, very dear friend who passed away years ago. He was a man much senior to me. Came from Midwestern Canada. His name was Mark Buntain. He pastored in India for many, many years. There were two people whom I so gloriously admired. Mark Buntain was one of them. He pastored in Calcutta. They referred to him as Saint Mark. When I was 19 years old, I was preaching in his church, terrified because he was sitting on the platform. And he introduced me. He was a senior man. And I thought to myself, wow, what am I going to do? Thank God he's sitting at the back and not in the front. And when I finished my talk and I sat down, still quivering, he put his hand on my knee. He said, "That was a great message, sir. That was a great message. Thank you for speaking to my own heart." And when his wife, Bonnie, when they lost him, she wrote to me and asked if I would write the foreword to the book dedicated to Mark. Whole generation ahead of me. One of the greatest honors. 4 days ago, I was talking to John Tabe, who is in his last days. He lived in Delhi. Youth for Christ Central Asia director. And I phoned him when I was in San Francisco, needed some statement from him. And as I spoke to him, voice is very weak, he's very old, and so on. And as I was talking to John, I call him Mr. Tabe. He said, "Please call me John. I find it very hard." He says, "Ravi, one last request from you, please." I said, "Mr. Tabe, what would you like?" "Will you come and preach at my funeral?" I said, "Mr. Tabe, it will be an honor, but I hope it doesn't happen too soon." When you admire people and follow in their train, you find out that grace is such a beautiful thing to carry. And whenever we preach of judgment, always preach grace. That God is a God of grace. The judgment we bring upon ourselves, the grace is what he offers to you and to me. Live the life. Let that indwelling presence be there. Let he be your guide in what is right and what is wrong. You follow that prescription from his definitions to his indwelling, to his grace that is so gentle and so beautiful. You will find that the Felixes of the world will sit in front there and they will test you to see if you're experiencing that message that you're talking about. May God richly bless you. Thank you so much for giving me your hearing. Amen.
Thank you, Ravi. We're going to hold you for a few questions, if that's all right. I had to chuckle at the fact that we have been doing events here for youth as well. And when we do events here for youth, we get lots of serious and thoughtful questions. And now we do an event for business leaders. And the first question is, why are sheep so fluffy? But they get more serious after that. So keep sending in the questions. The next question is, will we always know when we're called to something? Or do we sometimes have to just do what we're good at, even if we're not sure if we're called to it?
Great question. Really great question. There's a good friend of mine in San Francisco. He's one of the big venture capitalists there, Pramod Haq. He was telling us this week while we were chatting with him in the West Coast. He said he had gone to theological training, and he met his professor one day, and they took a test of aptitude and all of that stuff. And he went to see the professor afterwards, and the professor looked at him and said, "Pramod, I got some bad news for you." He said, "What's that, sir?" He said, "This is not the place for you. You're not fit to be a minister. You are brilliant at business. That's where you really belong." Pramod said it was the hardest thing I needed to hear, but the best thing. And today he supports Christian work all over the world with an extremely generous heart and a very, very successful career. You see, gifting and calling go hand in hand. But it is very important that when you are gifted, it is something God has given to you innately. Just because you go and study does not mean you are necessarily gifted. A person who goes for a training and assumes they are gifted has got it wrong. You go for a training because you already have that gifting, and you're going to sharpen that gift in order to respond to the call. You know, it's fascinating to me. At the most difficult time in Israel's history, when they were captives, God used a civil engineer by the name of Nehemiah. But Nehemiah knew very well that he could build a wall, but he needed Ezra to lead the people in prayer. We have the Ezras and the Nehemiahs. We have those who are gifted in proclamation, and we have those who are marvelous in multiplication of what God has given to them to be able to empower others. And it really has to go hand in hand. Ask God not only for a gifting that you want, but ask Him where that gifting is to be used, in what calling. You see, there's a difference between a calling and a job. A job is something you choose. A calling is something for which you are chosen. I tell my staff here, my door is not locked on the inside, my door is locked on the outside. I can't get out. I'm here. This is my calling. Every now and then I get a call from somewhere, whether it's an institution or this or that, to come and become the president or the chancellor of that university, and I tell them, "You're calling the wrong guy. I have no such inclination, no such propensity. My desire is to be an evangelist, and that's who I am." My wife says to me, "I don't know how you keep doing what you keep doing." I crisscross over the globe, go one day here, another day there, and you come back. This year will be about 220 to 230 days on the road. She said, "I don't know how you even stand after you come back from these trips." Because when she arrives after a trip, 2 days she's a goner. It takes her a while just to start breathing normally. It's been my calling right from the beginning. John Wesley preached sermon after sermon, riding 250,000 miles by horseback. He was one of the earliest versions of the Sermon on the Mount. Mounted his horse and would go and preach. Mounted his horse and would go and preach. Ask God what your calling is, and if you're gifted for that. If you sense the gift is in keeping with the calling, then your final test is 2. Number 1, have others seen that gift in you? If nobody else thinks you're good at it, you better think again. And number 2, has He opened the doors and provided the opportunities for you to walk into that place? Honor your calling. Ask God what it is He has called you to be. And if in that calling you have the gifting, take the 2 more tests. Can others affirm you? Is He opening the door for you? And then go get a training, and you will be using your gift to a better purpose and a greater advantage. You know, when Billy Graham started, I was there when they were talking about it. They were sitting on the platform. I was in the audience in Chicago. They're celebrating 45 years for Youth for Christ. And it was fascinating what happened. Tory Johnson, who's now passed away, one of the founders of Youth for Christ, stood up and said, when Billy Graham was a young man, I was supposed to speak at a high school. Tory Johnson said I couldn't go, so I suggested they ask this young man called Billy Graham. And they said they didn't want him. They'd never heard of him. He said, you will not be sorry. They said, no, we want you, Tory, not Billy Graham. He said, you won't be sorry. He said, no, we don't want him, we want you. He finally said, I can't come. You either have him or nobody is coming. So they sent Billy Graham. So they accepted Billy Graham. Billy Graham came back and Tory contacted him. He said, how did it go, Billy? He said, not very well. Only one person came to the Lord. Tory said, did you write his name down to pray for him? He said, yes, I did. He said, what's his name? His name is Warren Wiersbe. And Warren Wiersbe was sitting on the platform. The beginning of a great calling and a great ministry. A young evangelist by the name of Billy Graham speaks. A young man by the name of Warren Wiersbe responds. One became a great evangelist, the other a great expositor. Only the Grand Weaver can do such things. Next question there.
This question's from Tyler. If you want to live a life that truly counts in the kingdom of God, what should be your main focus on a daily basis?
God. It's as simple as that. But I think, and I'm not meaning to be funny, but I think you begin your day with God, you end your day with God in communion with Him. That's the parenthetical brackets of how you live. And the most important thing you ask yourself each day is, have I committed this day to the Lord? You commit the day. You know, He could have easily said, give us this month our monthly bread. But He didn't do it. He said, give us this day our daily bread. You live one day at a time because you're never sure if you're going to wake up the next morning. Begin with God, end with God, and when you do that, you will find He leads you and your greatest focus. So what I would say, giving it practical terms, begin your day with a Bible and a hymn book or a song book. I'm showing my vintage by saying hymn book. So begin your day with a Bible and a song book, because the teaching and the artistic genius of a poet, one opens up the head, the other opens up the heart, and you connect to both of them. Yeah.
In leadership, how do we navigate corporate cultural directives or expectations that are at odds with Christian teaching?
Wow, yeah, that's very, very tough. I grew up in a land where the Christians are very much a minority, very much a minority. I went to a school in Delhi where lots of yoga instruction in the morning, lots of prayers and lots of various Hindu chants and all of that. I didn't listen to anything because I didn't believe anything. But after I became a Christian and began my college studies there and saw all of that, I said, how can I be a Christian here? You have to live within the parameters of what you can and can't do. Because not every place gives you the benefit of the freedom of expression. If you play by the rules, people can see that you're a man or a woman who honors the trust that is placed in you. But if you're living that way, you will be asked questions to explain who you are. And that's when the opportunity comes for you to be able to respond to a question. If you live right, you'll be asked the right questions. And I sit in a plane, it happens. People often say to me, what do you do? If I tell them I'm a minister, the conversation's finished. So I always say, I travel around answering questions. And they just think I'm being funny. I said, is that what you do? I said, yeah. So I answer questions. What kind of questions? Well, what's the meaning of life? And I just leave it at that. And they'll wait and wait and say, what does it mean? We've got a whole conversation going. And I'll tell you what, if you do it right, you will always have an opportunity. Sometimes I have to say to you, I get on the plane and I'm really tired, and I say, Lord, please let this person not ask me any questions. I really want to sleep. I need to get a couple hours of rest or whatever. But you do it right, and you'll be asked questions. And that's when your moment comes to be a witness.
Great. Let's finish with this question, Ravi. Why did God create us? Was he just breaking out the Legos to play?
When Augustine was asked why God created us, he said because he was preparing a place for people who ask such questions. So, no. The very fact that you ask the question ought to tell you that you believe in intrinsic worth and purpose and meaning. You will not be satisfied by a meaningless existence. Why do you think that way? Are you thinking that way because the Lego pieces have come together? Or are you thinking that way because you believe it's a very rational question? The very question you're asking implicitly assumes that there ought to be an answer to that question. There ought to be a design to my life. There ought to be a purpose. But that is not the ramification of a naturalistic framework. If you're the random product of time plus matter plus chance, you don't ask those questions. You just move on. But when you ask that question, you say to yourself, it's because I believe I must have a purpose. There must be a cause. And so I put it this way. I think what Augustine said is true. You have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. Why did God create marriage? For the communion of two people. Why did God allow us to procreate? Because the responsibility and the beauty of raising a child and loving a child so that you find a cause that is greater than you are. Why did God create you? He created you so that you can have fellowship with your Father and find the purpose for which you are made. When you find that purpose and when you find that fellowship, you realize how beautiful it is that He's made you thus. We were in Iraq a few weeks ago, and on the last night, an incredible thing happened. God broke into that meeting. I had a younger man interpreting for me. His name was Milad. Milad was standing on my left. He was interpreting, and I made a comment of what Jesus had done for us on the cross. And when you're interpreting, you're going this way, you have to keep the rhythm, bang, 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 bang. I'd made my statement, and unlike all the other sentences, he didn't come in. So I turned and repeated, and he put his hand out. He said, please. And his lips started to quiver, his eyes filled with tears. He couldn't even get the thought out into Arabic. He was so deeply moved by it. When the meeting was over, we gave an invitation, and so many came to know the Lord. As they were walking out, a woman, looked like maybe in her 40s, leaned over, took my hand, and whispered into my ear, thank you for bringing a little bit of heaven into a very dark place in this world. Two young men walked one after another. Both of them went this way. Said, I came in here a Muslim. I'm walking out of here a follower of Jesus Christ. Thank you very much for coming here and ministering to us. See, the whole idea of purpose is to know Him and to make Him known. And when you know Him, you will want to make Him known because of what He has done in your life. When your life is empty, you will ask the question. When you find Him, you will know why He has made you. It's not like that Lego, but it's the fact that it comes in perfectly into a fit, and you say, this is why I am here in the world. When you find the Savior and you find your calling, you do not ask the question, why am I here? You know it. It's only when you don't know the Savior or don't know your calling, you keep struggling why it is. Whoever asked the question, I hope you know Him, and I know why He has created you and made you for a purpose, and you find that, you will be quite fulfilled. God bless you. Thank you.
Let's thank Ravi.